Good morning, dear students. I'm Dr. Asmireka Devi, Academic Counselor of Jorhat Study Center, Postgraduate Training College. Today onward, I'll be taking my online classes. These classes are specially designed for all of you as due to COVID-19, in this pandemic situation, we are not able to take your regular classes, which were usually held on Saturdays and Sundays. So, now onward, I'll be taking a few of my classes specifically on educational research and educational psychology. In today's class, I will be discussing about MES 016 Educational Research Block 1 Perspective of Knowledge. So, in this particular lecture, we are going to cover up these following units. It covers knowledge, its nature and types, sources of knowledge, purpose of research, educational research, its meaning and scope, and types of educational research. This topic is based on your first unit. This first unit is very important for all of you to understand the basic nature of educational research. Until and unless you do not understand what is the meaning of research, what is its scope, what is the purpose of doing research, and what are the different types of educational research, it will be very difficult for you to complete your dissertation at the later stage. So, as I have designed my classes block wise, so this particular research is from your first block and from your first unit. Hope you all will be very attentive during my lecture. Now, first of all, let's understand what is knowledge. So, dear students, we all know this present age is known as the age of knowledge, because this age is also called as the world of knowledge, because knowledge is a human commonwealth. Knowledge is called as human commonwealth. Knowledge is power. Why it is called as knowledge is power? Because a person who is more knowledgeable is more powerful. Knowledge is something which we can do to solve any kind of problem, or because of knowledge we can be called as a developed country also. Advanced countries generate knowledge through research and development. So those countries which you consider as advanced countries like USA or Australia or any other Western advanced countries, we will observe that they are rich because they do research and development in different kind of field. So to solve the problems of education, we need educational research. So with the help of research, we can generate knowledge, and which knowledge we can use to solve various problems related to education. Now, before we go to the types of knowledge, let's learn what is knowledge in short. Okay, knowledge is derived from the verb that is to know. Now, to know means what? What a person knows and believes to be true. Now, this kind of knowledge is known as a personal knowledge. Okay, a person's personal knowledge can be different than another person's knowledge, because my personal knowledge will be based on my own experience. So, personal knowledge may be unexamined, untested, and therefore subjective. But if we are talking about scientific knowledge, it cannot be subjective. The knowledge has to be objective. So, what is the difference between subjective and objective? Subjective knowledge is different from person to person. It can varies, but objective knowledge, it will be universal. It will be accepted by all. Okay, so this is the difference between personal knowledge and scientific knowledge. Now, knowledge can be divided into different types. So, which are the types? They are declarative knowledge, functional knowledge, procedural knowledge, and conditional knowledge. What is declarative knowledge? First one is called as a declarative knowledge. The category of declarative knowledge was done by Biggs. Now, this knowledge is known as declarative or propositional knowledge. Now, this knowledge comes from knowing what? Okay, what I know. It's not about knowing how. So, any kind of thing, that is what? As for example, the knowledge about our solar system, the knowledge about the galaxy, the knowledge about different season, the knowledge about the name of the months, the knowledge about our environment, these all are known as a declarative knowledge. And dear students, this declarative knowledge is also known as a public knowledge. You know why? Because public knowledge, it is tested through rules of evidence that makes it verifiable, replicable and logically consistent. Okay, because declarative knowledge is not only personal knowledge, okay, because we observed it in our surrounding and we accept it as a true, so it is called as a declarative knowledge, which is the first type of knowledge. Next type of knowledge is functional knowledge. Functional knowledge is concerned with how to do things, so it involves about it is based on understanding. Okay, functional knowledge is strongly rooted in declarative knowledge. Until and unless a person is having declarative knowledge, the person cannot develop his functional knowledge. Okay, functional knowledge is about doing any kind of work or any kind of thing that is in action. When we do a function or when we perform an activity, it is called as a functional knowledge. As for example, any kind of problem solving that is based on a theory is called functional knowledge. Okay, as for example, doing a sum in mathematics, okay, or knowing a theory in science and applying it in a practical situation, it is also functional knowledge. Next, third type of knowledge is called as a procedural knowledge. Now, procedural knowledge, procedure, it means it is related to action. Okay, so it is related to performance of right action in the correct sequence, so it is called as a procedural knowledge. Procedural knowledge, you have to follow some steps and all the steps should be in the logical order. Okay, now procedural knowledge, simple steps, okay, how to make a knot of a tie, or how to prepare tea, or how to tie your shoelace. These all are the procedural knowledge. You need to follow some steps. Now, last one is conditional knowledge. For conditional knowledge, two things are important. One is in what condition it will happen. Okay, so conditional knowledge is combination of both procedural knowledge and higher level of declarative knowledge. Fine, students, so it helps us to understand why and under what conditions one should do this and one should not do this. Okay, so conditional knowledge, as for example, for conditional knowledge, now if we see cloud in the sky, we can assume that there will be rain after some time. Okay, now conditional knowledge is in at what condition we can see a rainbow in the sky, that is also conditional knowledge. Okay, so these are the types of knowledge. Let's go to next slide. That is of sources of knowledge. Now, after we have understood about types of knowledge, let's see what are the different sources of knowledge. Okay, so first source of knowledge is experience. Okay, so almost every day we learn from our experience. Experience is we all know that experience is the best teacher. Why? Because what we learn from our experience, that is permanent. Many times we learn from others, okay, but what we learn from others, that we cannot believe to be true, but if it is experienced by ourselves, then it is permanent. Okay, we'll not forget it. As for example, when we see the sun rises in the east every day morning, we know that sun rises every day in the east. Okay, similarly, when we see the birds, okay, at the evening time, then going home, then we know that there will be darkness after some time. So this is of experience. Now, any kind of experience that is based on sense organ is also experiential learning. As for example, the taste like sweet, sour, bitter, hot, cold, or different kind of odor, smell, different kind of texture, different kind of scenery, whatever we see. Okay, so experiential learning is based on our experience of every day. Fine. Now, second type of source of knowledge is social customs and traditions. Now, many times what happen, it is not possible for us to have each and every experience in our life. We believe many things to be true based on our social customs and traditions. As for example, many home remedies, are based on the social customs and traditions. Now, many things we believe to be true because our parents say so, or because of our grandparents give us the home remedy. Now some examples, as for example, now some treatment of typhoid, or in Assam especially the chicken pox, and what are the treatment we do, that is based on social customs and traditions. Many times it is not based on our experience, but what we learn from our social customs and traditions. Thus, customs and traditions may not have any scientific basis and may be rooted in our belief systems or even superstitions. So now experience and social customs and traditions cannot be 100% foolproof, because many superstitions, as for example, many times we feel like that if many our superstitions are also based on social customs and traditions, so we cannot say that everything that we believe socially or social custom wise accepted is to be true. Last one is reasoning. Now reasoning is more scientific. Reasoning is more dependable means of reaching and establishing truth. Now what is reasoning? Reasoning is something that is logical. Fine. In reasoning, it is not only based on experience. We use our logic. Why it happens, what are the logic behind it. This is called as a reasoning. Now reasonings are of two types. So one is inductive reasoning, another one is deductive reasoning. This deductive reasoning is also associated with Socrates, and because it is associated with Socrates, it is also known as a syllogistic. In syllogism, we have major premises, a minor premises, and a inferences. In the next slide, we are going to discuss more about inductive and deductive reasoning. Now, here we are going to discuss about inductive and deductive reasoning. Dear students, here you have seen two triangles. The first triangle is about deductive reasoning, and in the triangle it's starting from general to specific, and the next triangle, it is of inductive reasoning, it's starting from specific to general. Now let's discuss what is deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is, in simple terms, we know it as a deductive reasoning is rule to example. When the rule is already known, and based on our rule we have to apply the knowledge to a specific situation, it is called as a deductive reasoning. As for example, man is mortal, Ram is a man, Ram is mortal. So here man is mortal is a major premise, Ram is a man is a minor premise, and Ram is mortal, that is inferences or deduction. Now in case of inductive reasoning, Ram is a man, Rahim is a man, John is a man. Or Ram is mortal, Rahim is mortal, and John is mortal. Then what can be the general premise? Man is mortal. So this is about inductive reasoning. Now deductive reasoning, it is easy to come to a conclusion to deductive reasoning because already we know the rule, or already we know the theory. But in case of inductive reasoning, we have to observe specific situation or specific events, and based on the many observations, on the basis of commonality in a given set of observations, we formulate a generalization. As for example, in which state we can find rhinoceros, then we can observe each and every state and its wild animal. And based on the data that we found that in Assam specifically, the number of one-horned rhino is more, or it is found only in Assam, then only we can come to a conclusion that one-horned rhino is found in Assam. That will be of inductive reasoning. Okay, I have given one example. Let's go to the next slide. Now we are going to discuss about purposes of research. Why people do research? What is the purpose of doing research? First purpose is generation of knowledge. People do research to generate new knowledge. Now, why? Because already we know that knowledge is power. If we do more research, we will be more powerful. Research is an activity that helps us to generate knowledge. Okay, people are curious since birth. Okay, we have different kind of questions in our mind about our universe, about our surrounding, about the cause and effect that's going on around us. Okay, and to satisfy our curiosity and to solve the problems we face, people need more research or more knowledge. Human beings are born curious, and throughout our life we keep on seeking answers to questions that arise in our mind. And research is a systematic study to reach to a particular conclusion. So first thing is that generation of knowledge. By doing research, we can generate knowledge. Okay. Now there are different kind of theories of learning that explain how human beings learn. So these learning theories we'll discuss more in our psychology class. Fine. Now second thing is that now research is based on samples and different kind of techniques. To do research, how research can be done? Based on some samples. Okay. Samples means what? Based on some data that we can collect from samples, and based on the observations and the experiments that we'll do on those samples, we can come to a conclusion. Okay, now such research are concerned with theory building, and this kind of research is known as basic research or also called as a fundamental research. Now this kind of research is very rigorous and based on carefully selection samples and techniques. Okay, first one is generation of knowledge, and only to generate new knowledge is called as a fundamental research or basic research. Okay students, fine. I hope you have understood the first purpose of doing research. Second purpose is problem solving. Now, based on specific problems in the field of language. Okay. Now, second is about to solve some specific problems. As for example, how can children learn skills more effectively? How a child can think scientifically, or how I can develop critical thinking in my children, or how can students learn to think mathematically. So these are the different questions that can occur in the mind of a teacher or in the mind of an parent also. Okay, of a parent. So this kind of questions can be answered by doing research. So second is to solve different problems that occurs in the mind of academicians, educationists, or in the mind of guardian also. Third one is action research. Action research is about doing a research to solve a present problem. For example, a particular teacher may notice increasing truancy in his class, or a teacher of English may find that students' attitude to the English language is far from positive, and as a result they do not take interest in English class. So how I can develop students' interest in English, or student how to reduce truancy in my class. Okay, so these kind of questions can be solved out by doing action research. So action research is something that is the researcher himself or herself is experiencing in regular teaching. Next one is training of future researchers. Okay, it helps to do more research, because research is just like a spiral curriculum. It's just a never ending process. What someone has done, this is not the end of the research. He has observed something, and based on his observations and based on his experiments that he has done in research, he has some conclusions, and some another person can take his conclusions as the beginning point, and he can do the further research. Okay, so this kind of research is also helpful for doing M.Phil, PhD scholars in educations. Now we are going to learn about what is scientific method. Okay, now as we have done the purposes of research, okay, it is very important for us to understand to what is scientific method, because research is a scientific method. It is known as hypothetio deductive paradigm. It involves both the steps, that is inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. Scientific method involves the following steps. A theory exists about the phenomenon. It means what? Any scientific research, we observe a phenomenon, and on the basis of observation some questions occur in our mind, that is called as a research question. Okay, theory exists about the phenomenon. Any kind of research, okay, there will be some established theory, okay, and some established theories are there about any one particular kind of situation. The researcher identifies a problem. Now based on the observations, researcher will identify a specific problem which is called as a research problem, or there will be some research questions in the mind of the researcher. The researcher formulates a research hypothesis based on the theory. Okay, what is hypothesis? Hypotheses are just like assumptions. When you do not know what will be your solution or what will be the positive outcome of your research, you assume something in your mind, but hypothesis can be tested, assumptions cannot be tested. So in research we use the term hypothesis. Okay, so researcher formulates some hypothesis. Now researcher develops a research design. Why design? Because any kind of thing, when you want to solve a particular problem, you have to draw a design. Means you have to follow some specific steps. Okay, how you are going to collect your samples, on the basis of the samples how you are going to interpret your data, and based on the interpretation how you are going to come to a conclusion. This is called as a research design. Fine. And after you design your research, then you collect data from the samples, and after collection of the data, the hypothesis that you have already formulated, the hypothesis can be of different types. Again I will explain about the types of hypothesis in my next classes. Okay, now here I have used the term null hypothesis. Null hypothesis can be tested, and at the end of the scientific method, the null hypothesis can be accepted or rejected. Okay, so these are the steps of scientific method. Now what is the significance of a research? Okay, actually I have prepared my slide the way it is given in the SLM, that is self-learning material, but what I guess or what I feel, the significance of research should come before we discuss about the types of research and purposes of research. But as it is designed in the same format in the point 1.7, I have kept this slide little bit later on. Okay, now significance of research. All progress is born out of inquiry. Doubt is often better than overconfidence, for it leads to inquiry, and inquiry leads to invention. Fine. The role of research in various applied branches is increasing. Now, role of research in various applied branches is increasing. It means what? We can, those theory, or we have already discussed about the basic research or fundamental research. Now basic research or fundamental research will give us only the theory part. We have to apply those things in the practical situation. As for example, we have so many theories for gender equality, we have so many theories about special education. Now when we apply those theory in the actual classroom, it becomes applied research. Okay, I hope you have understood. Now research provides a basis for new plans and policies. Now we all know about National Education Policy 2020. So here also there are so many researches done, and based on those researches those policies are implemented. Research is important for social scientists in studying social relationships and seeking answers to various social problems. Many social problems, as for example truancy, or unemployment, or depression, or stress management, different kind of questions, anxiety. So these are the different problems that we observed in our society, and to solve these problems also we need social science research. Now, meaning of educational research. Research is a systematic inquiry based on the scientific method and concerned with understanding, prediction and control of phenomena. Few things I have written in different color, okay, for you for better memorization. So research is a systematic inquiry, okay. It is not only inquiry, because if you is somewhere there is a theft or some robbery and we inquire, it cannot be scientific. It has to be systematic inquiry, and it is based on scientific. Why? Science is always logical, okay. Science is always based on evidence, and in research, what are the evidence? Our samples are the evidence, okay. And with understanding, prediction. Why? Because we make or we formulate hypothesis, and control of phenomena. We have to proper control. When we do the experimental research, then you will understand that there should be control of variables also. Now this is a simple definition of research. I repeat, what is a research? Research is a systematic study about a particular problem which is scientific and which is realistic. Okay, so the characteristic: research is based on inductive and deductive reasoning, combination of both. Research is empirical in nature, that is realistic in nature, and it is self-correcting. Okay, a research cannot be far away from the real world. It has to be realistic. Now, qualities of a good research. These qualities are just like the characteristic. The qualities of a good research can be summed up as follows. Good research is systematic, as already I told you. Because why it is systematic? Because it has to follow the research design. Research is logical, because it is both the combination of inductive and deductive method. So it is logical. Good research is empirical. Empirical means it is realistic. And last one is good research is replicable. Replicable means it can be tested time and again. What one person has done the research, another person in the same control situation, if he is doing the research, he should also get the same or similar kind of result or conclusion. So research should be replicable. Now, scope of educational research. Educational research has different scope. This is helpful for classification by levels of education. Now, classification by levels of education means this classification can be of preschool, secondary school, higher schools, etc. So the classification based on different levels of education. Okay, and now preschools, we know now National Education Policy 2020, school education is started from age of 3 to 6 is included for the preschooling. Okay, so the classification. Now for the secondary education, the level of any kind of questions, okay, any kind of problems that is related to secondary education can be included. And now for the higher education, face-to-face education or open or distance learning also can be included for higher education. Or NIOS, national, okay, open schooling is also can be considered as a level of educational research also. So classification based on level means starting from grassroots level to the higher level or higher education level. Second one is classification by curriculum areas. Curriculum areas means based on various areas of school curriculum, that is language education, science education, maths education, social science education, etc. Now, when we are talking about language education also, it can be again divided into three types of language, that is English is a first language or second language or third language or foreign language. Okay, now when we are talking about English as a second language, again we can conduct a research on teaching of grammar, teaching of poetry, teaching of reading comprehension, writing skill. Okay, so the research can be divided into small areas related to curriculum. When we are doing a social science research, again it can be divided into geography or it can be divided into history, and history also pre-independence period, post-independence period, etc. Okay, for teacher education also it can be divided in the area of pre-service teacher education or in-service teacher education. Correct? Okay. Last one is classification by research method used. Now this part, there are different kind of methods that can be used in research. As for example, experimental research, historical research, survey research, ethnographic research, etc. Okay. Now for your kind information, let me tell you. The first survey of educational research or research in education in India was published in 1974. Okay, please remember, this is very important for your objective kind of questions. So last is classification based on it is given very nicely in your SLM page number 18. Okay, so it is based on the research method that is used by the researcher. Now, types of studies in educational research. So, dear students, research can be divided broadly into two types. One is qualitative research, another one is quantitative research. Quantitative research is having three types, that is experimental research, quasi-experimental research, and correlational research. Experimental research is concerned with the investigation of cause and effect relationship in educational event. Okay, now what happened in experimental research? There are two kind of variable. One is independent variable, another one is dependent variable. Okay, now independent variable is written as a id and dependent variable is written as a dv. Now the result of independent variable has an effect on dependent variable. Okay, now this independent variable is known as a antecedents and dependent variable is known as a consequence, because of something, some other thing has happened. As for example, which method of teaching is more effective in promoting student learnings in a particular subject? If somebody is doing storytelling develops in students moral education, so now storytelling will be a independent variable and moral education will be a dependent variable. Another example, reciting long poems helps in better memorization. Then here reciting long poem will be independent variable and memorization will be dependent variable. Okay, next one is quasi experimental studies. Quasi means seeming but not really. It looks like real experimental research but not exactly the real experimental research, so it called as a quasi. Okay, now since educational research is carried out on human beings who are unlike objects, quite changeable, and controls cannot be exercised absolutely, therefore much of experimental research in educational is quasi experimental in nature. Why? Because human mind, are not totally controlled, so it is also known as a, so this kind of research is called as a quasi experimental in nature. Third one is correlational studies. Correlation, here you must have understood, correlation means relation between two. Co means two, that goes hand in hand or going together. Now in correlational research, between two variables tell us about the relationship between two. For example, if we know the achievement of mathematics is related with the achievement of science, then on the basis of the marks of mathematics, we can predict the marks of science. Okay, so many a times it happens, we feel like that if the student is good in science, the student will be good in maths. Or sometimes we feel like that if the student is good in language, the student will be bad in maths. Okay, these are only some predictions. Fine. Now correlation can be shown just between 0 to 1, and it is expressed in term of some direction as well as magnitude, just like plus 0.91 or minus 0.23, etc. Okay, now so there are some other examples. What is the relationship between educational achievement and level of anxiety? So correlation means what is the relationship between two. So these are the three types of quantitative research. Now we'll come to qualitative research. Now qualitative research, first one is survey. For survey we need a lot of sample. Okay, for survey we have to go to field, and based on our survey, when the declarative research is investigated what exists, okay, large sample is taken through a survey. It is called as a survey study. As for example, now for the Gunotsav, so all the government schools were examined, tested, and based on the Gunotsav, some research results are designed. So this is of survey research. Based on midday meal scheme, which district is doing well, this will be of survey research. Okay, now another one is case study. For case study, we do not need a large samples. Okay, for case study, it can be just one case or maybe some two or few cases. Now case study research is done specifically. Case study can be of different type. It can be institution, it can be individual. Now maybe we are doing a case study of problems of adolescent children, and we have selected only 5 adolescent children, or we have taken a school that is doing extraordinary performance in HSLC exam for last 10 years. So it also can be a research for case study. Next one is documentary analysis. Documentary analysis is when we do a document analysis of a particular things. Okay, as for example, document analysis of in the area related to subject education, religious or moral education, value education. Now evaluating the textbooks, evaluating the question papers, these all are the research related to document analysis. Next one is ethnographic research. Ethnographic research is just the opposite of experimental research. In the latter, research is conducted through carefully controlled experiments, but in ethnographic research, the research is done on naturalistic, okay, totally without any control, okay, by observing the things as it is with the help of field studies. Actually, ethnographic research is done to study the social customs, traditions of one particular community or group. Ethnographic studies use both participant as well as non-participant observation for collecting and recording primary data. Fine. Next one is historical research. So dear students, from the name itself you must have understood historical research is the study of what was. It is related to past. Historical research can be done on a historical figure, on a historical event, on a historical document of any kind of things, but it is always related to past, not related to present. Historical research can also help us to understand well-established educational systems like the one we have in India. Okay, now many kind of things. Okay, the status of women in Vedic period, the participant of women in freedom fight movements, etc. Fine. Last one is philosophical research. Philosophical research studies in education can be taken up under historical research only. Now philosophical research is study of metaphysics, okay, study of any kind of philosophy, Kantian philosophy, Vedic philosophy, Vivekananda philosophy, etc. So these are the different types of educational research. So dear students, we have discussed many things in today's class, starting from the meaning of research, okay, the characteristics, purpose, scope, types, etc. I hope you have understood today's class very well. If you have any queries, give your comments, and if you have any suggestions, that also you can give based on my audio class. Okay, thank you so much.